Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to season 2 of Conversations in Pop Culture, where I have with me all that Ava Taker, Ava Everett. So, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Yeah, now I'm very excited because obviously you got a big match coming up, Double Vision, and we're going to get to that. And I think I got about 4 things that I sort of want to talk about that you've done in wrestling. And I think the best place to start is the Platinum Honeys and how that all came about.
Yeah, when I first started training, Angel Sinclair started about a month after me. So for a long time, we were kind of like the only two females really training very regularly at our school. So we have the same birthday. That's for real. We literally were born on the same day. And we kind of just started playing around with the idea of like being a tag team, and um, it just slowly started to snowball into its own thing. And our home promotion was Chaotic Wrestling in Massachusetts, and they had their like big WrestleMania show, I guess you could say. It's called Cold Fury. And Anthony wanted to do this like big entrance. So our trainer at the time was like, hey, let's try this thing. You guys will just go out for the entrance and we'll see how it goes. And people saw the pictures and they were instantly like really intrigued by what was going on, because it was this 80s porn star looking guy with two hot blonde girls with him. So people picked up on it immediately, and everybody was so interested in having this act on their show. And we slowly just started getting more and more and more and more bookings with Anthony as this trio. And it led to a lot of really cool opportunities for me at like a very early point in my wrestling career in general.
So to even talk about that, because this started out, and I think it's safe to say, sort of like a ballet thing that
Mhm.
eventually led into a bigger wrestling thing. And I think people give ballets, a bad rap, but I think it is super important, and especially for Anthony and everything Anthony has done, especially on the indies. It is something that adds to the character, and also you've done spots in matches as a valet, and I think
Yeah.
valets are just underrated. So what was that entire experience like of being a valet and then slowly transitioning over, I guess, and getting into those wrestling spots? I'm going to talk about a few of them in a second.
Yeah, of course. So, I always trained to be a wrestler. So when we started managing, we were training to be wrestlers. So it wasn't just like he found us on the street and we like came in and started managing him. But for me, I'm really grateful for that point, a part of my career, because I think it advanced me more quickly than most people would have experienced kind of like their pro wrestling training and transition into matches. Because for me, it's how I learned how to call matches. It's how I learned how to just kind of like be part of an act and react to the crowd and react to fans. And I'm very grateful for it. I wouldn't be who I am as a wrestler now if I hadn't done that.
Yeah, and I think one of those things that I also think it opened up, because you mentioned that it opened up an opportunity, and I know we're doing it a bit out of order, and there's a reason why, and I think it's going to make sense in about 20 minutes. And I want to talk about Women's Superstar United, because that was one of the big opportunities that sort of opened up, and you were part of the Women's Superstar Tag Team tournament. You faced DeMonte and Valentina, and then you faced Rainbow Bright, which is Gabby Gilbert, and Luscious Latasha, and the
Mhm.
Endless, which is Davienne and Megan Mason. And I think you won the titles there. So what was that opportunity like that opened up for you? Because it is a big deal getting into WSU and getting titles and holding those titles and all that stuff.
Yeah, it was a lot, I think, at the time. And it only kind of like helped but add credibility to us as an act. And I feel like it was a really awesome opportunity in terms of I got to share the ring with a lot of really fantastic female talent. And without being on that show, I would have never, had the chance to learn from them. So for me, it was very overwhelming because we were still so brand new. I mean, when
You're
I
like
was
really
doing
green.
WSU, yeah, when I was doing WSU, I had probably only been wrestling for like a little over a year at that point, like training and everything. So it was very nerve-wracking because I was like, man, am I even ready to be doing this? Should we be on all these shows, getting these opportunities? But it put me in a good place for where I'm at now because it made me learn quickly.
Yeah, and to even talk about that, because you were very green at that time, and then you got the title belts on you, and obviously credibility, and also breaking out of that valet picture, I guess, position as well, where now it's like, oh, the Platinum Honeys can wrestle as well, which I don't think anybody who was paying any attention doubted that, but also when you put belts on people, it does also signify that people can wrestle. And obviously, WSU is a women's promotion for the most part as well. And I think it also added credibility to who you are. So, what was all
Yeah.
that like, getting your first title belts and holding them?
You know, it was really cool. I feel like there's a certain lineage that comes with certain promotions, and when people put faith in you, it always just kind of makes you feel really great about the progression that you're making. Especially, you know, something wrestling is something that I really enjoy to do and I really love. So it just made me feel like I was doing all of the right things. And it just like makes you want to work harder.
And then, obviously, sticking with WSU, you had another title at the match and you dropped the titles to Delmi Exo and Casey Cattell, and Candy Cartwright replaced Angel. And so what happened with Angel in that match, and what was that like, having to adapt to a new partner and a new circumstance? Because wrestling is a physical sport, for lack of a better word. Injuries happen, things can go
Yeah.
wrong. Sometimes people just not make a show because you got a family emergency. And it's just like anything else. And so what was that like, adapting on the fly to all of that? Unless you knew ahead of time. If that's the case, correct me.
No, so exactly what you said. Angel actually did get hurt. She had a really bad back problem that was going on. So Candy had been doing a little bit with us kind of throughout like the whole like months leading up until that show. And I had never worked with her per se other than her managing us at the time. And you know, it's like things happen and you have to adapt to change, and sometimes it doesn't work in your favor, but it was really cool for me to see people like fill in where they're needed. So to me, I appreciated it. I appreciated the opportunity that to even get to wrestle in that match, because when your tech partner is not there, it's okay, what do we do now? Are you just not on the show? Are you gonna have somebody else fill in? Like, what exactly do they do to fix that situation? Because you have to think fast. Because it wasn't actually something that we knew was going to happen. It was like a day before thing that it was, we were like, oh no, like, okay, well, you're not going to be able to perform because you're really hurting, you're really injured. So where are we going to go from here? But I think it all worked out, and you know, we lost, but it's okay. Like there's always, it's everybody gets their own opportunities and their time to shine, and it was very clearly Dalmi and Casey's time to shine. So you know, I'm okay with it.
And I think it's also a very good lesson at the same time, being able to adapt and go with the flow and understand that things happen. And then there are wrestlers who don't know how to do that and adjust. And
Yeah.
wrestlers that do, I think, tend to do better overall. And so I think that's also something that is really cool, to your credit, that you were able to adapt and do the match. And both of those women are also able to adapt. And both of them have been on the show. Casey Cattell's been on, and so has Delmi. And so it's super interesting to knowing all that and knowing a lot of stuff that's happened with all four of you. So having said all that, you mentioned Lineage, and I figured we would talk about Beyond, because Beyond is one of those companies that is legendary on the indies. It's either the biggest or the second biggest next to GCW. And so you and Angel faced a lot of people. So obviously you faced Maria Manic and Penelope Ford. And Maria Manic scares me, and Penelope Ford's in AEW. And I think that was the second Uncharted Territory episode, I believe.
It
And
was
so
one.
what?
It was one of the first ones there. Yeah,
So
it was
what
kind
was
of like
that
our
like?
first real introduction, which was really cool. As because we had managed for so long, so it was like our one of our first opportunities to actually show people that we could wrestle. So it was cool.
Yeah, yeah. So what was that like being on Uncharted Territory? Because Uncharted Territory was very much groundbreaking for the indies, I feel, where a lot of people were watching it. It was eyes on a lot of talent. A lot of people were brought in, not just New England, but there was a bunch of other stars that came into Uncharted Territory, and I think it was a big launching point for a lot of people. And so, what was that like? Just getting into Beyond and being on the show and getting to work. And obviously, we talk about a bunch of it
Mhm.
also.
Yeah, no, it was really cool because you see the type of people that at the time were getting brought into those shows, and they were the top stars on the indies. And when you're so new like myself, you do want to be in a position where you're used, because if you have a match with someone that's, been wrestling 10 years opposed to how I've been wrestling at the time at that point for like a year and a half, 2 years, it put me in a position where it was like, man, I really want to learn from these people. I do want to step in the ring with them because it's just going to make me better. So getting those small opportunities, like I said before, just enhanced who I was as a performer.
And to even go further, obviously, you faced Milk Chocolate, and they've been around for a while. And then you faced Club Cam, and those matches were cool because obviously it was Anthony, Josh, and Angel. And I think that was a gauntlet elimination type match.
Yeah, Richard Holiday was in that match. Kenny Dykstra was in that match. So there were
Yeah.
some really cool people that we had the opportunity to share the ring with.
And so what was that like? Because obviously a bunch of those people have done everything in wrestling and have done some of the most amazing things. So obviously I like that match a lot. And what was that like? 'Cause that was an intense match.
So that was a gauntlet, and while it was a giant tag team match, at the same time, it was almost like individual singles matches. So for me, that was like the first time I was going out by myself as like an individual, and not being right next to a tag team partner or standing on the ring or being in the corner or something like that. We went out by ourselves. So at least for that match for myself, it was kind of pivotal in me deciding like, hey, like I really like being my own person, and I like being my own individual and not being not being a part of a group because we were in a group, but I liked being able to go out on my own, and show people what I could do as myself. So that match was actually it was almost a different situation than all of the other tag matches and managing spots and all the different things that we had done, because it was just me. I didn't have somebody out there with me. I had to do my own thing.
And so, and I think this is where you sort of caught the singles bug a little bit
Yeah, of
because
course.
and so even though, because in tag team wrestling, it is an art and you are sharing it though, because typically in tag team wrestling, there are three other people around you. Sometimes there's five if you count the ref.
Yeah.
If there's a manager of the tag team, it's six. And obviously in singles wrestling, it's just you, your opponent, and the referee. And you do get that spotlight and everything you do and the moves you do. And also, I think the crowd wasn't exactly expecting you to come out and do what you did in the match. And I remember, I think there was a big pop when you
Yeah.
were coming out and doing certain things and moving around. So what was that like? Because obviously this was sort of not saying you didn't have pops before.
Hmm.
But this is your first like singles pop, and it's like all you versus somebody else.
Yeah, I feel like I always worked really hard, and I'm so grateful for the opportunities that I got as a group and got as a tag team, and being with Anthony and all of the different opportunities I got out of it. But at the same time, when you're working so hard, you do want to be your own person. And when you're in a group, you have to be mindful of the people around you. Um, I'm a very controlling person. That's just my personality, is very over the top and very controlling. You can ask Anthony. It's probably one of his least favorite things about me. um, but I have a very hard time not being in control of a situation. And when you're part of a group or you're part of a tag team, you don't always have that ability to be in charge. So moving on to being a singles competitor and having singles matches, I think was just the next right step for me, because it put me in like a healthier headspace because I was able to control situations, which is, it's not a good thing or a bad thing about myself. It's just, I know that about myself. And I just wanted to be me. And it's hard to be yourself when you're part of a group or a faction.
And I'm going to just table that because I do want to talk a little bit more about tag team wrestling because some of the cool stuff I think happened in Beyond. You got to wrestle Shark Boy and Team C Star, and that was at one of the outside shows, which was, I love those shows that Beyond does.
It was on the beach. It was like 110 degrees that day. It was so hot.
So let's even talk about that because obviously wrestling is a contact sport.
Yeah.
Wrestling probably makes you sweat, I think is a safe assumption here. And so what it was that like even prepping up to do that match, because obviously the hotter it gets out there, you know, things can go a certain way. The ring can be affected. You're on the beach. There might have been a breeze, but even staying hydrated.
There was no breeze. There was absolutely no breeze. Nope. I don't think any amount of training can get you to be like ready for that sort of situation. You just have to prepare the best that you can. But most of the time, a lot of the venues, you know, that we're in, there's air conditioning or they're able to open the doors. There is that little bit of breeze or something like that. But that day on the beach, the canvas, they have a black canvas. So it was scalding hot. Fortunately enough, in our match, we like fought to the ground. We were in the sand and we like went in the water and we were away from everybody else. I feel horrible for everyone that had to wrestle in that mat because it, like, you can only imagine it's like 110 degrees out and the mat's even hotter than that because it's just right under the sun. So there's sand everywhere. It was just a really, really cool opportunity. I don't know how much I recommend wrestling on the beach. I don't think I love it, but it was a cool opportunity. But like I said, I don't know if, unless you literally train on the beach, if you can be ready for that sort of situation. It's crazy.
And obviously, I have a soft spot for Shark Boy. So
I mean, a lot of people do.
I love Shark Boy. I love the clam juice. I think it's funny. I don't know who Shark Boy is. I don't know who Shark Boy is trying to imitate here. You know, it's my guess as good as anybody's. But I thought it was brilliant that Shark Boy was teaming up with Team C Star.
Mm-hmm.
What a perfect match. And then obviously your team going up against them, it was amazing. And that's one of the things that I also want to talk about that Anthony went on and you were a part of is the, I guess, Retribution Tour, facing people like Stevie Richards, Gangrel, Victoria / Tara, and all those matches. And so what was that like, having to go through a bunch of legends in the wrestling world and being a part of that and coming out to all that and having some roles in it, especially Stevie Richards was really fun at Lethal Lottery.
Yeah, and like I said before, and even like mentioning when you're in the ring with people that have just been on the indies for years, it's an even cooler opportunity when you like see those people that you grew up watching on TV, because you get to pick their brains too when you interact with them and you see how their mind works. So for me, it was a really awesome opportunity because it was just a learning experience. And I really feel like we all, myself, Anthony, and Angel, we all just evolved because of it.
I enjoyed a lot of that stuff. I thought the funniest one out of the bunch was Stevie Richards and how he comes out and like he's right to censor, and then I think somebody hands him a Snickers bar and that entire thing, and then they're like, tell Stevie he's not himself, and oh, it was brilliant. It was brilliant. Yeah. How you two came out. I think one of you was the green meanie and all that stuff, instead of the blue meanie.
Yeah, and I had the fake like weird drawn on goatee, and like I did the drawn on glasses, and I dyed my hair green with like spray, like that spray stuff. I looked literally insane. Like I think one of the ugliest looks I've ever done. But I loved every second of it, so it's fine.
Well, I think it was brilliant. I think everybody got it. I think that entire crowd was super stoked for it, and I thought it was a well played hand, and I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
And obviously, even talking more about Beyond, obviously, you and Anthony have tagged a bunch in Beyond against, Lady Frost and Savage Gentleman and Victor Benjamin, I should say. And so, what was that match like? And then there was a few other things that also the punk rock Pussycats, which was Alley Cat and Jody Threat as well. And I know that all four of the people I just mentioned have been also on the Indies, and maybe not so much in Beyond, and getting the opportunity to wrestle people outside of New England who maybe don't come up to New England all that often and might be more in the DC, DMV, Pennsylvania area. So what was that like, getting that different flavor of wrestling?
It was really cool for, I think, both of us, but for me it's a little bit more heartfelt because I feel like since I started wrestling, and like, so Anthony obviously is like in my real life, fiance, and we're in a relationship. So for me, it was always really special for us to share the ring together because I always knew he was going to be destined for greater things. So getting to have those opportunities to wrestle with him, because we definitely had tag team matches together, but they really weren't as frequent as I think people would have anticipated, because you did always see us together, but most of the time it was like I was managing, or it was a big group tag team match or something like that. So we didn't get to spend all of that much time just like as a unit in the ring. So for me, getting the opportunity to wrestle, Lady Frost and her husband, and Alley Cat and Jody Threat, and you name it, like as a team, it really, he knows how to make me shine, and I think that I just enhance his personality. So it kind of just put us in a situation where people were like, wow, I really like this, I really like this group, I really like their personalities, because we know how to work together. But when it's his time to be, the star, he's a star, and when it's my time to be the star, I'm the star. And just getting to share those moments with him, because obviously, he's on to greener pastures now, and I'm by myself again. But those are some really cool moments for me, not so much because of just like the wrestling, but because I got to spend time, working with him, which is just really cool. Like, you always want to like work with your friends and work with your best friends, so what can you say?
So to even go off of that a little bit, because obviously there are wrestling couples that don't work together. There are wrestling couples that do, and sometimes it's great. And it's one of those things that not every wrestler has a partner in wrestling, and so obviously you do. And so that changes the dynamic of everything surrounding how you view wrestling, how Anthony views wrestling. And when somebody says, hey, I get it, or there's a wrestling problem, for lack of a better word, or a wrestling question, it's sort of the same wavelength, on top of being in the ring at the same time, and also understanding and examining each other's matches and knowing what it's like to go on the road. No pun intended for Limitless right there.
Yeah.
Be a perfect plug for them. I don't know. They should do a show about that, right?
Yeah.
But what is that like, having a partner in wrestling? Because there's a mentality to wrestling. And I think that having somebody in the business is super helpful versus coming home and not having, your real life partner, saying, what was your day like? You know what I mean? If that makes any sense.
Yeah, for me, I feel like it's really weird because everybody has like their different experiences with like wrestling relationships, and some people, obviously they don't want to share the ring together, or they don't want to work together. I never really felt that way. I think for me, if you want to be a wrestler, you need to take the time to train and develop yourself and be on shows, and it's so time consuming. So I could not imagine if I didn't have the chance to be with Anthony as an act, because we would have never seen each other. So I always really enjoyed being a part of his act, or him a part of mine, because I wouldn't be able to see him or hang out with him as much as I got to without those opportunities as us being a group. I know that, some people, it's just that not their dynamic, and I totally respect that. But for us, being like a unit just worked. We like to watch all different types of wrestling together. I liked to learn from him. I loved traveling with him. We always had a really awesome time. So, uh, for me, it just was kind of like the right move.
Yeah, and also it must be super cool that you get to see him wrestle on a lot of these shows that you're on, and he gets to see you wrestle, and that even when you're not in the same matches, you have that support system, and it's nice to have a travel buddy in many
Yes.
ways, in which that, maybe the driving is split 50-50 also, or just somebody who's on the same wavelength. It's super, super, I think, important. And I also think it's a big grounder because the wrestling world can be a big toll
Mm-hmm.
on a lot of different things in people's lives, especially if you're traveling all over the place. So I think it's great. And I know that the two of you have traveled all over, done shows
Yeah.
up in New York and down and a variety of other places.
Been to
So
California. Yeah, we've been all over the place.
I don't think you've been to the West Coast yet, but
Yeah, we went to California. We did. We were there.
I stand corrected. I stand corrected. I'll leave it at that. And then obviously I want to jump in a little bit into Limitless because obviously you had a very intense and emotional match with Anthony, and
Yeah.
that was an amazing match
Thank
in many
you.
ways. And I think the ending and the interview, I guess, after the match was also very emotional and very real. And so, what was that like? Because that felt really real, and I would imagine it is real. And it was something that I don't think we see a lot in Limitless and everything that's going on with them and the road and all that stuff. And it was cool, and I enjoyed that match, and thought it was a really well done match.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. So on the same like token of being in a unit with someone and being a tag team, I always wrestled obviously alongside Anthony. It was never like against each other. And it was always a little bit taxing, I think, for us because like it's just like it's a real like there's real emotion there and real like you're fighting with somebody. So I feel like it was I have wrestled Anthony 3 times. The first time we wrestled, I was so brand new. Like I had maybe had 5 or 10 matches at that point. I was very, very, very new. The second match we had was like a little bit better. It was actually on my birthday, and it was really nice because he had other plans, and I was meant to be on the Limitless show, and he kind of like surprised me and was like, "Hey, it's your birthday. Like, why don't we wrestle?" It was my actual literal birthday. Like we went and did a show together, and so that was really nice. But it had a different tone to it because it was meant to be like fun and funny. We literally smushed a cake in the referee's face on in this match. So it was
So to stop right there, what is that like to put on a comedy match? Because I think that's what this was.
that's what I
That is an
usually do
art
all
in of
the
itself.
time, and Anthony was doing a lot of the times too. And I don't even think it was any of these matches were like super meant to be funny, but I think we're just really outlandish people, and we have a hard time like controlling ourselves and being appropriate. So I always really really enjoy when people like find genuine like excitement and like genuinely laugh at the things that we do because we're like really crazy. But I also think that's why we get along so well. So but that match was really really fun. But this third match was kind of like it tied it all together where I was finally starting to like get better and get to the point where I was having really decent matches on my own. And I knew that at the time, Anthony was, he was leaving the Indies. So it was kind of one of those situations where it's like, okay, well, I don't know when I'm ever going to get to wrestle you again. And you want it to be perfect and you want to, you know, make you want it to be like a good memory for them. So it was kind of, it was a very, one of the weirdest matches I've ever had. And not so much because like the content was weird, but it was just a weird situation because you're almost like who knows? I could potentially never wrestle Anthony ever again. We have no idea. And just knowing that, you know, it's going to be some time before I get to like share the ring with him, whether it's as his partner or against him, was just so weird. Like, it's still weird for me to like think about it. I feel like I still haven't really like put two and two together. Because I mean, we talk about wrestling and like we don't train together, obviously, because he's doing his own thing. And it's so weird because it's like you don't train with them anymore. You don't even have like training matches. You just like they're gone. And it's just like a very weird thing. So it was a very weird match, but it's very special to me, and I enjoyed it a lot, and I think that a lot of people enjoyed it. So
And also, one of the things, and we're going to dive a little bit more into the road in a second here, or maybe 5 minutes from now. But one of the things is that the road, for those that don't know Limitless, the road, Beyond wasn't running at the time, and I know Beyond is back right now. I think a lot of wrestling was sort of on hiatus, and there was a lot less, I think, indie wrestling when a lot of these matches were coming out. So there was a lot more fans coming into this. You know, I didn't know Limitless existed until 2020, and
really,
I just didn't know. And it was one of those things that it was just like when a bunch of indie other companies were just not running. I'm like, oh man, this is kind of cool. And I'm like, oh snap, like because there's a lot of independent wrestling out there. And so I think that also helped as well in many ways because it was one of those things when there's less things to watch, like, oh man, you know, I actually can now watch this and this, and there's less competition per se. And so that's how I came into Limitless and found out what Limitless was. So obviously I think that also helped because I think there's a lot more eyes on this match because there's less wrestling to watch.
yeah.
And, you know, the big two, I think also people, while they were watching them, they were also looking for some alternatives as well at that time. So I think that also helped tremendously with this match. And then obviously you teamed up and you faced the Higher Society, I believe, and both of those
Sure did.
those young kids. We're gonna leave them at that. Those young kids need some discipline.
You know, they're very mean, but I have a hard time disliking them. I really do. I think that they are, you know, Armani Chaos and Paris Van Dale have a lot of really fantastic potential, and I can't wait to see what they do going forward.
Again, they are young and they need some discipline. We're just gonna leave it at that.
They're
And then
very
I say
mean.
that a
I'll
love.
say it.
Say
They're
that a
very
love.
mean. They're meanies.
I say that a love for
Yeah.
them, and as they grow older, they will become more mature. Let's leave it at that.
Probably not. They're mean. They're not changing.
And then also leaving Limitless, and I promise we're going to come back. I do want to talk about a match against Bear Country because Bear Country, I think I'm not too sure. Was it you and Angel, or was it you and Anthony that faced Bear
Anthony.
Country? Because obviously Bear Country's out of Beyond. They were sort of, I guess, dealt the aces out of, you know, I guess what was it, Santana and Ortiz, Team Pazuzu sort of ish. I think
They were doing everything and beyond at the time. They were really like one of the top tag teams. They were brought in almost every single week. They were wrestling, you know, the best of the best.
And so what was that like, getting a match against Bear Country? Because as you stated, they pretty much sort of were the aces of the tag team division. And so what was that like? 'Cause that's kind of one of those cool matches that, you know, you're going up against the top tag team on the indies.
I think it was a really cool experience. I mean, obviously, when you're on shows with each other so frequently, like you get to know people on a personal level, and they're really cool guys. And I think that they know their stuff very clearly. They know their stuff. And it was a cool opportunity because for myself and Anthony, it was it was kind of like, okay, like we're a couple, but we are a team. And then when you wrestle somebody that's, you know, starting to become like a top tag team on the indies, it just adds credibility to you as a performer. And it was a really cool experience because I'm very small. And the ramifications of like those two, even Anthony is small. So we were like these two small people going at it with these giants. But I really enjoyed it because I feel like every time you're in the ring with someone, you learn from them. So I got to experience like a different side of people that I had never worked them before, anyone like them. So it was cool. It's a really cool thing that we got to do.
And I like that match because I like the dynamic when two big horses go against smaller people and people that sort of, I guess, are what I call more like aerodynamic in that. And also, I like the intergender aspect of it too. I thought it added a nice touch to it. And so I liked this entire match, how it looked before it even began. And then obviously, I thought that it was just a solid match as well. And it's fun to watch. You know, obviously the two of you and Bear Country as well, and I know everybody in the ring, so that also helps to some degree. So I'm not going to pretend that
everybody. It's almost like you know who to root for when you know everybody in there. Makes it more fun.
It does. It helps when you know the wrestlers. It helps. I'm not going to pretend. It absolutely does. So having said all that, I do want to back though out of Anthony, and I do want to talk about you and your singles career, and then sort of some tag team stuff that sort of happened beyond this. And so that I know that you caught the singles bug, and it's sort of weaving in and out a little bit. And so obviously you wrestled a bunch of people on the singles thing. And so obviously Wrestle Bay Vanity, who was on Tuesday, and we're going to have to redo it. If you saw that interview, everybody, you'll understand why. Legitimately, her phone died in the middle, and then she got locked out of her apartment, which I don't think she's going to mind me saying that to some degree. So that's going to be redone. I'm just letting everybody know. Alex Reynolds, who I think is killing it right now, and I love Alex Reynolds. Alicia Edwards, the two of you have gone at it hard in a lot of different ways. And so, and then I don't know if you've wrestled Chris Strattonlander. I don't know if you wrestled her in a singles match, but I know that you also wrestled her this time. And so obviously, what was it like wrestling these four people?
So I'll try and go in line there. You said Vanity first. I loved wrestling Vanity. I wrestled her twice now, and I'm always like, when do I get to work with you again? Like, she's awesome. She's a really cool person. Alex Reynolds, still to this date, probably I would say, other than my match with Anthony, because it's so special, my favorite match I've ever had. That match was really, really cool. And I think that, you know, he's starting to get, you know, more notoriety now, but I feel like for a long time, Alex was so underrated. He has such a great wrestling mind, and he's so talented. And I feel like that match, I learned like years of, you know, wrestling knowledge in that match. It was just, I loved everything about it.
And to even talk further about that, because obviously Alex Reynolds was teaming up with Mark, you know, Sterling, smart Mark Sterling, and you had a match against him. And
he's another bad guy. He's a bad guy, but we like him.
Mark is probably one of the smartest people in wrestling as well, and then also Chris Levin, who you know as well. And so, what was that like? Because I think some of Mark has rubbed off on Alex Reynolds to some degree, especially working with them a lot, and also John Silver too. And so, what was that like as well? Because it's sort of the same thing. They're different people, but they sort of have the same mindset.
So we've had tag matches with Mark, but I've actually wrestled Mark Sterling in singles matches as well. And like,
I know he's the women's title holder, right?
I don't know if you can find those matches anywhere. You may be able to find them on the internet, on YouTube, if you like type Ava Everett. Actually, no, I wrestled him at Limitless, so you can find it. I love wrestling Mark. He's super creative. So a match that you're going to have with him is going to be different than anybody else because he tries to outsmart you, which some people just want to fight, but him, it's totally different. He wants to be smarter than you in that ring. So he's super creative and he's a super cool guy, even though he's super mean. And but I kind of do like him now. He is, he is on retainer. He's my lawyer. So if I ever need any help, I just go to Mark. But he's super cool. I really enjoyed those matches.
And then what about Alicia Edwards? Because obviously I love Mark, and I think Mark is one of the best things. Anytime somebody can work with smart Mark Sterling, they should.
Yeah.
And no matter what anybody ever says, even if he's going to outsmart you, you will become smarter because of it. So I will say it that way. And he also makes an amazing women's champion. I will say that as well.
Yes. Alicia is like the OG of New England wrestling. So for a lot of us, it's almost like a rite of passage. So if you are trained and you're brought up in New England wrestling scene, you're going to wrestle Alicia at some point. So I wrestled Alicia quite a few times. And what I like about her is she's different. She's like scrappy. She's not trying to do like 450s or anything like that. She's trying to fight. So you learn to kind of like hold your own and like stand up for yourself when you're in the ring with her. And I've always had so much fun wrestling Alicia. I wrestled her, at a local promotion called Lucky Pro Wrestling. I worked her on 01 USA Northeast. So I've had a lot of opportunities to be in the ring with her, and it's very cool.
And I enjoyed those matches too. From what I've seen, I haven't seen all of them. I'm the first person to say that, but what I've seen and some of the tag stuff, I really enjoyed that. And then obviously Chris Strattonlander, and obviously AEW, and Chris Stratt is great, and I love everything Chris Stratt has touched. I've only seen her a few times on the indies, and crazy talented, and she's going to be something. I could say it that way. I'm not too sure if Area 51's coming though.
Yeah, Chris is really cool. I did have the opportunity to wrestle her in a singles match, and it was a really awesome opportunity for me because I think at that time there were like rumblings that she was going to AEW, and I know that some people are exclusive and some people can do indies there. So I didn't know how when the opportunity was going to arise for me to wrestle her in a singles match because I had done some tag stuff with her. But it was never like the ability for us to go one-on-one. So I was really fortunate. I wrestled her on the Major Wrestling Figure Podcast Christmas show. There's like 4 or so matches on it. It's actually like a really insane card. There were some like crazy people on the show, like Sandman's on it, Hornswoggle. Alex Reynolds is on that show. Anthony was on it. Myself, Chris Statlander, just like all of these random people. I actually think Zack Ryder and Brian Myers were on the show while they were in WWE. They like got clearance to be able to be on this show. I don't know if they wrestled. I don't remember. But I know that they had something to do with it in some capacity because it was their show and it was for charity. So that was really, really cool. It was a very unique experience, but sharing the ring with her was super awesome. And she got so good so fast. So it's cool when somebody like kind of like starts to click and they start to get it, and then you get to work with them. It just makes you better.
And to even talk about that, because obviously last night I had Gary J on, and I'm going to hopefully be releasing Aaron Williams, and they're part of the unsigned and don't care movement. And one of the things that's happening in wrestling is that a lot of people are getting signed, and it's almost like every day somebody new is getting signed. And also every day I feel like the people say, oh man, everybody's getting signed, there's nobody left on the indies. But I feel like every day people are stepping up. And so obviously it's kind of weird because, if you wrestle somebody who is getting good, tomorrow they could be signed somewhere. And then, it becomes, so you never know when you're going to have your last match with somebody right now, I feel like, on the indies. And so it's kind of a cool and crazy situation. And so how do you feel about that? Because I'm, as a fan, I sort of love it and I'm sort of very confused by it. And I'm not going to pretend that it's a crazy time in wrestling, and it's a great time in wrestling too, for that reason. So what is that like for you? Because all of a sudden, you know, we look at Limitless as a good example where there's a bunch of talent that is definitely going to be primed up sooner rather than later.
Yeah. I think that if you've ever been in the wrestling business, it's hard. And you train hard and you travel far for a really small amount of money. And it's just most of the time you're working really hard just to get opportunity. And for me, I think it's so cool when someone gets signed somewhere. It stinks that, you know, if they're really good and you don't get the opportunity to share the ring with them, or you're not going to get the opportunity to share the ring with them again. But I think for me, just knowing how difficult it is to like get to that next level, I always love when I see someone, you know, make it. So quote unquote, make it. Cause you know, if most people are working towards something like getting signed or going overseas or something along those lines. And I think that for even a lot of people, a lot of their goals is like, I want to go to Japan. I want to go to the UK. I want to go to Germany. And with like the pandemic, you can't do that right now. So for a lot of people, the next best thing, if their goal wasn't to get signed, is to get signed now, because that's kind of like the only wrestling that is super stable and happening frequently. So I always like to see, at least right now, I'm always so impressed with people when they get signed, because it just gives them more opportunity to be able to wrestle. Well, some of us can't right now. So
Also,
bittersweet, but I really enjoy when I see people like going to that next chapter.
Well, also, does it change your perspective knowing that the person you're wrestling, let's say, you know, we'll use Limitless as an example, that this might be your first and last match with them forever. And so you sort of come into the mentality saying, hey, I got to make this memorable, because that's how I would approach it in many ways, is saying, hey, you know, I got to now put my best foot forward, because might be my only opportunity I'm getting to wrestle this person for a while, if ever again. So like, because that's how I view it, is that some of these matches I feel like are going to be one-offs. And it's like there are certain people that could have rivalries for years, but since everybody's getting signed and getting those opportunities, we're having all these one-off matches that legitimately could have been year-long rivalries. And it's a crazy time to witness all of that. And so that's like a crazy mentality to me, to even have that possibility of, and like that sort of in the back of your head. I don't know if you think of it like that.
I kind of do and I kind of don't. Only because like I don't want to sound like a cliche person, but every time I step in the ring with somebody, I put my best foot forward. I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna perform to the best of my ability. I wanna, you know, do my best to have like the greatest match possible. And I don't care if it's in front of 5 people or 100 people. Like I'm gonna put the same amount of effort in no matter what, because those 5 people still paid to see you wrestle. So when I see all of these people that are, you know, moving on and getting signed, and where like you're wrestling in them and you may not have the opportunity to wrestle them again, but you should be going into that match. You should have already been going into that match with the mindset of, I want this to be the best match ever. You know, I want to have like those moments and the athleticism and encapsulate it all, even if it is a one-off match. I feel like you should always try your hardest. So it doesn't change my viewpoint going into it. But it does kind of make you feel a little sentimental if you know that, you know, they're being looked at and they may not be, you may not get to wrestle them again. But it never changes my performance, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And even backing off of this, and then we're going to get back into Limitless, I promise, because there's a lot of stuff going on with Limitless.
Yeah.
But I do want to talk about Basic Becca, and maybe a short topic. So,
Scrunchy Squad.
Yeah, I don't know who stole her scrunchie. But
I don't know either, but they need to find it out, honestly, because this soap opera is just, It's I don't know. We need to find out
Well,
the last scrunchie.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm Team Love Doug. So clearly,
Uh, uh,
his victory at Camp Love Frog was amazing, and I was rooting, and it was such an amazing moment for all of us. Hopefully, I was
well,
heard.
he had one victory at Camp Love Frog, but he has had 0 victories at Limitless. So let's remember that.
But anyway, getting back to basic Becca. So obviously, you're the chaotic women's champion. You had a bunch of title defenses, and obviously,
I didn't. I actually really didn't. Um, I won the belt on like one of the last live shows before the pandemic, and then I did not get to have like matches against anybody because of it. And then by the time Chaotic started running shows again, I was moving to Florida, so I had 2 title defenses. Actually, technically it was 3, one against Becca, one against JVN, and the one against Becca where I lost the title. Those were my only defenses, but I was the chaotic women's champion for like 8 months.
So to talk about this, because I think basic Becca is beyond talented, and
Yeah,
I
she's
think
great.
she's starting to get good, and both in cutting a promo and the cinematic wrestling style and her ring ability, and I feel like you dropping the title to her put her over in many ways. I feel that it also added a lot of credibility. And so, what was that like? Because those matches, and now that's sort of trending a bunch on Twitter between I think you're tweeting it and she's tweeting it, and what happened in those matches. And I really think that it really helped to put her over. So what was that like? Because, and I think you are to some degree viewed sort of like a gatekeeper in New England a little bit at this
Oh,
point.
thank you.
A little
I don't
bit.
know about that, but
You should just take it
maybe
and
one day,
smile.
maybe one day. But I'm still brand new too, so
But I
I
feel
wish.
like for her, in many ways, you were that hurdle she had to climb over. And so I feel like you sort of kickstarted her position because you've already been down it, and that's like that first hurdle that gives her a bunch of boost. And I think it's super important when people put other people over. And so, what was that like? Because I think it is important to acknowledge that and really talk about it. Because I think when we look back on your career and even Basic Becca's career 5 years from now, this is going to be sort of her turning point in many ways. And so, what was that like for you and all this match stuff that sort of happened?
Yeah, I mean, I guess like to my point earlier when I was kind of chatting about all of the different people that I worked with and that enhanced me, I can only hope that like one day when Becca's looking back at her career, she can look at the matches that she had with me and she can say like that she learned from them. I think that she has a lot of potential and she's a super charismatic person, and I really do feel like it was her time to shine. And not just because I was moving and not just because uh, I just felt like somebody really needed to invest in her. And I think that Chaotic was willing to do that. It's kind of like Chaotic is synonymous with New England Pro Wrestling Academy, and that's where we train. So while Becca didn't start training at New England Pro Wrestling Academy, she ended up coming and training with us probably about 6 to 8 months before I knew I was moving to Florida. And when you're training with people all the time, you get to know them really well. And from the first times I ever wrestled Becca or was in the ring with her, or I saw her at training, I just knew she was going to be something special. And I say this genuinely, she has more athletic than I will ever be. This girl can do some crazy stuff, and it just enhances her as a performer. And I think that she has so much character and so much energy and so much life. And I just think that it was her time to kind of like be on the top of the pedestal. And I just hope like the best for her, and her career continues to go the trajectory that I feel like it's going, because she works really hard and she's very dedicated. And I think she's a super cool person. So what are you gonna do? Her and that scrunchy squad, man. I will not be part of the scrunchy squad. I will not. But it's very cool, and she's a very cool person.
Well, I think that you have enough on your plate that the Scrunchy Squad is going to have to take a long hiatus, especially with what's going on in Limitless. And obviously, I said we're going to return. So you and Davian got some shit to handle.
Yeah.
To put it, you're dropping the subtleties here. And you have a long history with Davian dating back to WSU. I think the Spirit title. Obviously, you were the girls' room. I think that's an Amanda Show reference. I'm going to take a stab at that. You're probably a 90s baby. So I'm probably going to take that reference too.
She is too. She's like something like 6 months or 8 months older than me or something crazy like that. We're almost the same age. So all those types of references we bonded over.
So having said all this, and obviously being a team and facing each other, and then obviously her in Limitless and sort of being very dominant, and then you coming back and maybe coming back sort of as a friend, and then you sort of did something, I think it's a safe say, which was a really big pop, because I don't think anybody was expecting you back on season 3. And so what prompted all of this to happen, and why, Ava, why is the question?
Yeah. I just think for myself, like I've always, said in the past, it's hard to be part of a group. It's especially hard to be part of a group when you feel like you're being taken advantage of. And I think that has always been my driving factor in wanting to be my own person. That's being with Angel, being with Anthony, being with Davian. I just feel like I'm destined for greatness, and I need to be in control of that. And I think that, when Davian and I were a tag team and we were doing what we were doing, and we were going to come back as a team to Limitless, I know that they have been doing some really great tag team stuff. And then she kind of started to do her own thing on season 2. It was what it was. And it just gave me the encouragement to be my own person and do what I need to do to be my own person.
And so obviously one of the things that I think is making this great, and obviously this match is taking place at Double Vision, I think on March 19th. And so one of the things is that there is such a rich history. I mean, this is 3 years of history on and off. This is New England wrestling.
Maybe it was in my first match ever.
And so obviously there's so much blood and there's so much history here. And I think that's what's making this match special, and the fact that, you were the girls' room, and then that's now dissolved. And now it's clear that Davian is on, a dominant force, and then you're back and you've had amazing matches. And now everybody's like, oh my God, this is going to be amazing. Like, I don't even know any other match that's taking place on Double Vision except this, and I have no desire to really care about it, because this to me just seems so much more of a story. I'm more invested knowing the history. Davian was, I think, one of my interviews like 5 years ago, very early on as well, and so on my other show. So obviously I know a lot of her matches, and then it's like now, so what is that like, knowing that your opponent so well, and that you have that rich history, and that now we're going to get something going on, and I have a feeling it's not going to be over after this match.
It only puts you in a position where you know the ins and outs of their abilities and their capabilities in the ring and what they do. So I think it's going to be very, very interesting, because we know exactly who we are on the inside. So I think it'll be a really interesting situation for everyone involved.
And I think a lot of people at Limitless are going to be very happy. I think a bunch of fans are going to be very, very excited for it as well. And I am stoked for it, as I stated before. Obviously, because I just want to see this fight happen. I really do, and I'm very excited for it. And I got a feeling it's far from over afterwards, as I just stated, because just let the two of you fight and let it go. And also, Davian is a powerhouse, and you obviously have.
I'm real bluff.
Exactly. So I'm very excited for it, and so that's obviously March 19th. A lot of history. I'm super, super excited for this one. So having said all that, I do want to sort of talk a little bit about what Limitless has done and COVID and all that stuff, because wrestling has been legitly messed up. I think that's an understatement. I am a big comic book fan. San Diego Comic-Con 2021 has been canceled and sort of moved to November, and it's going to be a smaller con, and they're doing things online. I think that that's sort of a statement. I think WrestleMania, is 2 nights. NXT is also going to be limited attendance, and then a lot of other stuff is happening. So it's pretty clear to me that things are starting to slowly roll out with the vaccination, but things are not going to jump back to normal so quickly, and there's a lot of hurdles. So I am curious where you think things are going, because I know Limitless is doing fanless shows, but the roster is in the crowd, and I think Double Vision is going to be like that as well, from my understanding. So where is wrestling going, and have you been affected and all that stuff? Because you're on the inside and I'm on the outside.
Yeah, I really like the route that Limitless is going with, like the fanless shows and having, everybody that's in attendance ringside. It keeps things tighter. Everybody is required to get a COVID test. You can't even enter the building unless your temperature has checked. You have to wear a mask at all times. There's hand sanitizer going around, people are 6 feet apart. So for me, I appreciate all the precautions that Limitless has taken. And I guess that's a lot of the reason why it's been one of the only shows that I've done since the pandemic started, because I knew from the beginning they were going to do all of the right things. And I just hope that everybody in all of the other promotions and everybody continues to be safe and continues to do all the right things. Get your COVID test, wear your mask, use your hand sanitizer, do everything that stay at 6 feet away if you can. But that's why I really just enjoyed continuing going to Limitless, because they do all of the right things. So.
Yeah, and I also think that they're smart enough where it's all pre-taped, and I think that's also very helpful because it allows for these things to be done the right way, and that I would imagine there's less pressure on all of that stuff, and also not the entire roster of Limitless is necessarily there at the same time as well, and so that also helps because there's less people and a variety of other stuff, and also I think Randy is the owner, right? I think also he's not totally interested in making the most amount of money as other promotions might.
He wants us to be safe, but he wants to put on a good show too. So he makes sure that his talent comes first over anything, and he's making sure that we're in the safest situation as possible, which is just, I think, a super stand-up thing to do. And I think a lot of promotions are doing that. And it's like, as somebody who's, on the show and it's performing, I appreciate it greatly. And I know a lot of people appreciate it greatly because they're just trying to protect us and not worry so much about their own finances, which is really cool.
Yeah, and I think that that's something that I was getting at, meaning that, obviously somebody is recognizing the talent has to be safe. And obviously, people have to, be smart enough to understand that. And that, and especially, and I'm a strong believer that, if you treat your talent really well right now, and then when things get better, your talent's going to remember that really, really well. And they're going to be right generous back to you. I'm a strong believer in that business philosophy. So I think this is going to benefit promotions that tend to do this the right way. And I think promotions that don't, well, I think they're going to have a bit of a harder time moving forward because people remember things. And so obviously, going off of that point, where do you even think wrestling is going? Because I think this is the new norm for a while. And I personally like it because I like watching wrestling at home and on Wednesday nights and not going to shows. I actually prefer it much more than actually going to shows, oddly enough.
I'm a homebody. I'm also a homebody, so I like the online shows. I like being able to sit on my couch and watch it in the confines of my own home. So I'm very similar to you in that aspect. I know that a lot of fans, they like to go to the shows. Like, that's the purpose of them being there. And I think that's why I kind of like how some promotions are starting to do like limited capacity, because those people who really need and want to be at a show can go. And those of us who want to watch it online on IWTV or High Spots or Facebook Live or Twitch or whatever they're running on, it just kind of gives us the opportunity like, oh, well, there's limited capacity. I don't have to leave my house because I probably can't get a ticket anyways. Maybe I'm uncomfortable. Maybe I'm immune compromised. Maybe I just don't like going out. And I want to stay in my home. I really enjoy that these places are kind of streamlining and doing like two things at once. And I feel like it's also it's kind of like giving indie wrestling more exposure. This whole opportunity did, because I feel like, you know, if you get to go to your home promotion or the show that always runs right down the street, or your local bar runs every month, you kind of get your wrestling fix. But when you don't have that at all, it kind of opens your eyes to, okay, well, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to click on what's live on IWTV. And then you start watching, and then like the next show that's on the queue comes on, and you're like, hey, what is this? So I hope that it continues to be streamlined a little bit more than you do like fan shows. Just until like the world is calmer and everybody is vaccinated and everybody is safe. I really enjoy that online presence. And if you are running shows that they stay limited capacity, and those people that really love the interaction with the wrestlers and their wrestling friends that they've made being fans, I hope that they get to see and hang out with their friends and do things on a limited capacity and 6 feet apart and masks and all of the above. So I hope that it stays to the smaller size shows and like everything streamed online, because I really, really like it.
I hope it never leaves online. I really hope it never does, because my home promotion, and I'm now in Connecticut, I was in DC, is St. Louis Anarchy. And I'm not too sure if they're in Minnesota or Kansas City. I think it is like the two, or something like that, or Missouri. I forget if there's a St. Louis in one of those. And then one of those states is wrestling friendly and the other is not.
Yeah.
I can tell you that. But I hope, and I'm in Connecticut now, so clearly my home promotion is a long ways away. I've never been to.
You're like, I need it to be online or I can't watch it.
And so it's online, and it's great, and I love it, and I hope it never leaves, because I watch more wrestling from all over the world now than I've ever watched before, and I love every second of it. So I hope that even when it does reopen up and all this stuff comes back, I hope it still remains online, because I think it is brilliant, and I think the exposure is bigger. I think that every wrestler has gotten bigger than ever because of it. And because now that it's on IWTV, they have a huge amount of subscribers, and like Beyond and Uncharted Territory was a great example of that. You know, I think that was very important when you have a lot of people watching wrestling, you know, and that it's relatively, you know, $10 a month IWTV. $10 is not a lot of money. It is practically free. Yeah, I'm not saying it's completely free, but if you want to watch wrestling, $10 is not a lot of money a month to watch wrestling.
Yeah,
and it's pretty impressive. And obviously, Mania week, guys. I think it's the 8th, 9th, and 10th. Definitely IWTV, Team IWTV. $10, guys. I do not get paid for saying that. I just want everybody to watch.
I'm wearing an IWTV T-shirt, so
exactly.
I don't get paid to wear the shirt.
I should get an IWTV shirt. They should be sending me kickbacks, or at least buying me a beer, but that's a different discussion. I have to write a nice letter to them with a very intimidating legal heading of a Hello Kitty sticker on it. I am sure they will respond in kind. But anyhow, having said all that, and I do want to give you an opportunity to promote yourself, because obviously I know you got a Twitter. I don't know if you have a Facebook page. I don't know if TikTok. That's the new thing that all the kids are doing. Snapchat, maybe TikTok. Instagram, maybe.
None of that.
Maybe Instagram, right? You have to have
one of those.
So, and then obviously merch, because that's the most important part right there. So obviously, where can people find you on all those platforms?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Ava Everett _. And I have a Facebook fan page. If you search Ava Everett, if you find one, you'll find all of them. And I do have a Patreon page. The link, I believe, is in my Twitter bio. That's primarily where I do most of my content right now. I have like a very limited run of like tank tops, which are not good for winter. So in terms of merch, Patreon is the best way for people to support.
Yeah, and on that note, I've been saying this with everybody is that obviously you got to support indie. Supporting indie at this point is super important. And when I say support indie, primarily, if you have the extra money, definitely support financially. Buy T-shirts, buy the merch, buy 8x10s. Subscribe on Patreon. Any tier is a good subscription. And please go do that because it does make a difference, especially in COVID with wrestlers wrestling less, with not being able to sell merch at tables, not interacting with fans. Super important to do that right now. But I will say this, COVID has been very, very tough on a lot of people. It's been rough, financially. And if you're in a situation where money is tight, please take care of yourself. Make sure your mortgage is paid, your rent's paid. Make sure your husband, wife, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, they're doing all right. Make sure you're doing all right. Make sure your dog is fed. If you got kids, make sure they're okay. Make sure next month is good too. Make sure all that's good. Obviously, if I didn't say it, keep your electricity on because I still want you to watch me. Make sure you got internet. That's important too because I definitely need to be watched. I need the views, everybody. But in all seriousness, joking aside, please take care of yourself in every capacity, first and foremost. And if that's the case, you have to follow on social media. That means following Twitter pages or Twitter, Facebook pages, Instagram means a lot. And even going beyond following, you should absolutely like, tweet, retweet, comment, share it. You never know who's looking at it. You never know one of your friends might be interested in something and they didn't know it existed. And then they might become a fan too. And that is super important. So having said all that, I will give you the final word.
All right. Am I saying an outro? Is that what you had wanted?
Yeah, you can say the final word. You get the final word.
I'm not ready for this. No, absolutely. Do all that you can to support everybody around you. Watch as much wrestling as you can. The more wrestling you watch on like IWTV or High Spots or whatever it is, the more that they can bring us into wrestle, which is what you want to see. So watch wrestling everywhere you can because somebody's benefiting from it.
I couldn't have said it any better myself.
Mm-hmm.